Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I am your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer. Today with me, I have Miss Janelle Anderson. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. I have had the opportunity to speak to Janelle, and she is amazing. I love her story, her passion, and how she shows up in the world. And I wanted the audience to actually hear more about what you do. So, without further ado, welcome to the show, Janelle, and thank you, audience, for tuning in and watching this recording. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, how you got to do what you do, and your passion, and we go from there.
Absolutely. Things I love to talk about. So I am, yeah, I call myself a confidence coach for women entrepreneurs because confidence for me was something I did not have most of my life. And especially for women, I've noticed through the years of coaching, I've been coaching now for 7 years. That's my business. So I've noticed as I've worked with women that this issue of confidence comes up a lot. The imposter syndrome, is a thing, right? And the research has shown that more women suffer from imposter syndrome than men. And I see this show up in a number of ways. And one of the biggest ways is just being able to empower their voice to speak up for themselves and to be confident in who they are enough to express that and communicate that to the world, and not shrink back from who they truly are, just being able to step out there and give their gifts to the world and share it and speak it out there. I find a lot of women hide in the shadows and they diminish themselves and they don't own their accomplishments. And so they're really not living their life to the fullest of who they truly are and not showing up 100% like out there with whatever gifts they have to share with the world. I know that was my story. So I always say that I was hiding behind the curtain instead of coming out on the center stage of my life because I didn't think anybody was interested. I didn't have a strong sense of value and worth in myself, and really felt like whatever I had to say, nobody really wanted to hear it. And it started really in my big family. I grew up in a big family, 8 kids. And just imagine, 8 kids around the dinner table and everybody's chattering at once. And I'm trying to be heard and nobody's listening to me, And in my frustration, I talked to the wall. I actually literally would turn and talk to the wall. And my family would be like, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm talking to the wall because nobody else will listen to me." And so, of course, it became a big family joke. But in my heart, I was really building this story. An imposter story is what I call, these thoughts that we.
I think we just lost you for a second, but we're back. So continue. You were telling us about how your story involved confidence and why you became passionate about it.
Yes. So I was sharing about, growing up in a big family and just that story I created that nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. And then that just made me really shy. And even in school, I'd kind of hide out in the background. I didn't want to be called on for anything. And so I just kind of took on this idea and this story, and it kept me from speaking up and from feeling like had anything to share of importance. But then later, as I got into my 20s, some things happened that made it even worse for me. I experienced several traumatic events. From at 19, I was actually drugged and raped by another guy, that I didn't even know him. Just me and my friend were out one night and hanging out and talking to some guys. And the next thing I remember is waking up in my bed and this guy is on top of me. And the next morning I woke up again, and I didn't realize at the moment that had happened. I thought the story was that it was my fault. And somehow I had put myself in this position to be, to me, I was in a one night stand, losing my virginity because I was a virgin at the time. And I really wanted to be that way until I got married. So the huge load of shame that landed in my heart from that then set me on this course for years of feeling like a nobody. And really the story was that I was worthless. And 3 or 4 years later, I found myself sitting on a bar stool in a Las Vegas casino, and I didn't want to do what I was about to do, but my boyfriend was standing there by the door watching me. And what he had decided I should do is to sell my body. So that was my first day actually being trafficked. And I didn't know that that was even a term. And again, the story was it was my fault. I was worthless. This is all I was good for. So all of that added on
Mm.
to my already embedded story that I wasn't important and I didn't have value, and anything that I had to say was not important. Nobody wanted to hear it. And so then 3 years in that lifestyle, I did get out of it. I was rescued really dramatically out of that place in Las Vegas through a phone call with my mom where she prayed with me. And suddenly I had the strength to resist him. And I said no. And I moved back home at 26 years old, but I had all those stories and I didn't do anything with them. I didn't process them. I didn't get any help. I didn't tell anyone. And so they became just buried. And I lived for the next 30 years behind the curtain of my life. And I did not realize how much it was impacting me and how much that was keeping me from feeling confident and keeping me from going after my dreams and being seen and heard. And so I hit my 50s and I began to feel like, gosh, time is going by really fast. And I am not living up to my fullest potential. I'm not fulfilling my purpose. Something's holding me back. And I began to really look and search within, like what is holding me back? Why do I not step out there? And in that process, I realized that my past was impacting me and I needed to deal with it. And so I did. I went through some inner healing and got a lot of understanding about what really happened. And I began to see that I had believed a lot of false stories about who I was when I encountered all those different events. And so I began to change that story about myself and I began to see who I truly am. And then I began to see a confidence growing inside of me. And it was just naturally emerging. And I found myself speaking up in places I never would have before. And I remember being really surprised, like, wow, I just said that there. Like, whoa. And I realized that it was coming from inside. I was creating confidence by letting go of false stories and really taking for the first time a clear picture, like a clear look at who's Janelle and what makes her different and unique and what are the good qualities, right? What are the strengths? What are the things that make me me? And as I did that, I began to really like myself for the first time ever. And so I'm very passionate about helping women come to that place in their lives. And not everyone's experienced a lot of trauma, but we've all experienced things that created these stories in us that really take away and diminish our confidence in who we are, which then keeps us from speaking up, from going after higher goals, from overcoming obstacles, taking action, all those things that we need to do in order to fulfill, our purpose in life and have the success that we really want. So that's my story.
This is such a prevalent and very common thing that is out there. It impacts everybody, and more so, unfortunately, women. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, in your experience, focusing on this area, what seems to be the challenge that causes this, and number two, the challenges in overcoming the lack of confidence. I don't know if they're the same or not, but
Mhm.
there are certain things that lead to people having low confidence, and there are things that when people decide, I'm gonna go ahead and work on my confidence, they become stumbling blocks for them progressing. So, what are some
True.
of these challenges in your experience?
It's interesting that you draw that distinction between um, the struggle with being confident and the struggle with becoming confident. How do you do that? Because I hear that a lot. Like, how do I even create confidence? I wasn't born with a confidence gene, so I'm just not naturally confident, And some people really are. Some people have That's
Right.
part of the personality trait, is just the self-assurance and self-confidence that just seems to be there. But most people really aren't born with a confidence gene. And it can come from, you can create confidence from external ways and also internal. So most people, I think, concentrate on the outside. When they think, oh, I want to build confidence, they think, well, I've got to practice something until I become confident in that thing, right? I became confident as a piano player because I practiced it and I learned the skill and I did it enough times where I had confidence in that. But and that is a way to
Mm.
build confidence. Practicing something, I tell people this all the time, the more you do something, the more confident you'll be in that thing. But that doesn't mean that you'll be confident over here in this other area. So that to me is this inner confidence in who you are. And it's, the word confidence really comes from the Latin word fidere, which means to trust. So at its root, confidence is trust. And so if you're trusting in yourself that, hey, I can do this, I can
Mm.
overcome challenges, I can learn new things, I can accomplish what my heart really desires. And that's the inner confidence. And the way to build that is, just like I was saying with my own journey, is to peel off the things that are not true about you. And you really have to start questioning those things, those thoughts that show up that say you can't do something, that inner critic that says, no, you're not good enough. You should be quiet. You should not try to do that. When those thoughts come, stop and question them. Is that really true? Because I think a lot of times we don't question the truth of these like inner thoughts that we've been so used to hearing. Um, and we don't challenge the truth. We just accept them as true, and they're not. So stop and challenge that. And then what would be almost like the opposite thought you could have, right? Mine was, nobody wants to hear what you have to
Mm.
say,
Right.
right? The opposite is, I'm going to put myself out there where everybody can hear what I have to say. And that was a journey. There was a big gap between the two. And it was a gradual thing. The
Right.
first time I spoke up, publicly, I was very nervous and scared. And, so again, there's that developing the confidence by doing it, but also developing the
Right.
confidence in yourself, believing in yourself that you have what it takes to do what you really desire to do. And I truly
Right.
believe that.
Ultimately, that boils down to that first step, right? So having
Yeah.
that trust in yourself to step out
Yeah.
is essential. And then as you step out, then the next step and the next opportunity presents itself. And then in itself, when you find those, then that gives you confidence in the fact that you will find your way and kind of builds in on itself. So I could definitely see that. Very
Mhm.
nicely said.
Thank you.
All right. So in building the trust and building the confidence, there's definitely milestones. And
Mhm.
as you said, it doesn't happen overnight, just like
Right.
everything else. It's you're not born with it. It's something that's built, and it's something that develops and evolves, and you can steer it in the direction you want it to, or based on what you do, you could steer away from it as well.
That's
Now,
true.
having said that, what would be some of the tips that you have for our audience members when it comes to establishing that trust and establishing confidence and getting rid of that inner critic? Things that they can watch this video and right away they can start taking action on it.
One of the things that I have women do is start making a list of all of your accomplishments. You could even do your whole life if you want to. Break it down by decades, like from 0 to 10 years old. What were some of the things you accomplished that they don't have to be great big things? Like I was the pogo stick champion of my block. Like I could get on a pogo stick and jump on that thing for hours. Things like that, like all the things, like make a whole big list of every accomplishment you've ever had, because that, as you read through it, that just like you start to think, wow, I have done a lot of things. Look at all the things I have accomplished so far in my life. And then take a few of those
Right.
and dig into like what made you able, what in you, what quality in you gave you the ability to achieve that. maybe it's a degree that you earned, or you were
Mhm.
promoted, or maybe you wrote an article or wrote a book or raised some awesome children or learned how to make a souffle, whatever it is. Like, look at
Mhm.
that and say, well, in me, I have this ability to stick with something to the end, or I have this ability to organize information, or whatever it might be. Like, think about you and your natural gifts and connect it to the accomplishment. I found that's very, very helpful for women, because we tend to, and this is imposter syndrome, is we tend to say, well, yeah, I achieved that, but it wasn't anything in me. It was just luck, or I had a lot of help, or I just worked an insane number of hours. But no, there was something in you that enabled you to achieve it, and connect those two
Right.
together. And then start talking about it out loud. Like, go to the mirror, look at yourself and say, hey, you're awesome because look what you did. We feel, as women, we feel like we're bragging when we do that, but it's just stating a fact. And we need to hear ourselves validate ourselves, because that builds the inner value in yourself. You're not looking for somebody else to validate you, although that's nice to get that from other people. But if you don't value
Mhm.
yourself first, then you're always going to be looking for it
Sure.
outside of yourself. And so one way to build it is to take
Absolutely.
that list, go look at yourself in the mirror and say, you're amazing because look what you did. You accomplished this, and be very specific, and just get used
Right.
to owning your accomplishments.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
one tip.
I hear that. In fact, I'm actually guilty of it myself, that
Mhm.
sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for things done, right?
We don't.
And we brush it off as, oh, it's no big deal, or anybody could have done it. And the reality is, you mentioned going all the way back to childhood, but the reality is, in any given day, it is amazing the amount of things that get done, especially women with multitasking. Guys can't do it. With the amount of things that in all the different places that they're at, and then just brushing it off as if
Yeah.
it's no big deal. Anybody else could have done that, and being
Mhm.
able to step back and actually recognize yourself for getting those things done. That's a huge
Yeah.
accomplishment.
Yeah.
Actually, the going through the process of giving yourself that credit, that's an accomplishment in itself.
It
So
really is.
yeah,
And it builds
absolutely.
confidence. Yeah.
But all right, what else? What other tools do you have? This is awesome stuff.
Yeah. Let's see. One of the things that it's actually the free course I'm offering you guys. It's an exercise at the end of it. This was so
Wow.
powerful. This was so powerful. So do this exercise, and I don't see how this couldn't build confidence. So what you do is you write down all the qualities that you see in yourself, and then you write down what you think other people see in you. And then you actually ask people to send you words, either through text or email or whatever, people close to you, and just say, hey, I'm in the middle of doing this exercise, and I need you to send me some words of how you would describe me. These are words, right? So you get a bunch of words that describe you. Words are powerful. Words that we speak over ourselves, that others speak over us. That's why the inner critic is so powerful, because it's made up of these words. And usually we beat ourselves up and
Right.
criticize ourselves, right? So this is the opposite. So you get all these words describing you, and it might be like achiever. One of the ones that came to me was trailblazer. And I was like, I'm a trailblazer. I'd never thought of myself as a trailblazer, but that's what people were telling me. That's how they saw me. And I was like, I'm going to own it. Because if other people see it in me, then it's there. I'm just not seeing it, probably because I'm listening to the inner critic. So now I'm changing the story in my mind. I'm changing my thinking, and I'm owning positive things about myself instead of the negative. And these are words that I can actually believe are true. They're not just words I made up. And that's key, I think, because you could just make up a bunch of words, but if you don't believe that they're true, it won't resonate with you. But if they're actual descriptions of who you are, and I actually took some from like an assessment, like a personality assessment or the Strengths Finder, and you take this assessment and it gives
Mhm.
you words that describe you.
Right.
So put them all. I made a really nice vision board with colorful, words and pictures. And I look at that and I'll take a word maybe, every day and say, you're a trailblazer. Look at what you're doing that's blazing a trail. Like you're an inspiration. And that builds your confidence too, because it's really who you are. And I talked about this earlier with my own story. I had to get to know who I was. And once I got to know who I
Right.
was like, that's pretty amazing. I actually like myself. I'm not comparing myself to other people anymore because I like who I am. So that's another exercise that
That's
I
amazing.
found really helpful.
I'm not sure
Oh,
if this is gonna show up or not, but I literally
whoops.
have
Oh, it doesn't show
and
up.
I don't know if this is probably not gonna show up. It doesn't.
It does for set. There it is.
Basically, what happened is I actually went the very exercise that you just yeah, the very exercise that you just described, and I had people that knew me write down um, different facets of me, that the different features, different adjectives for me. And
Awesome.
to me, that was so enlightening to see that I actually keep it on top of my binder. And I see it every
Wow.
day walking in front of the screen as
Yes,
a reminder of all the different things that are there. And yeah, so yeah,
that's
it's
key.
definitely a great example.
That's key. What you just said, keeping it in front of you. Um, can I go run and get mine to show you?
Sure, sure,
Okay.
absolutely,
Okay. Hang on.
absolutely.
This is so fun.
Truly amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So these are things that we can all do, and it adds meaning, it adds depth to our lives, to our personality. It helps us ground us. Wow, look at yours.
I know, isn't that
I
awesome?
like that.
This is
And
a picture of me and it says passionate and tenacious trailblazer. And I just like owned it and I put it on a picture of myself. But I love looking at this because
very
and
cool.
it makes me feel really good about who I am. These are things that normally we don't see, And then on the back, this is another thing. You take it and you take all those words and you write a third person account as if you're talking about somebody else and you describe
Mm.
yourself, but it's like you're talking about somebody else. And then I said it out loud on one of my podcast episodes. It was so powerful to read this out loud and then realize I'm describing me. And I put at the top, do you know how great you are? You're really great. But do you
Mm.
know it?
Right.
And for a lot of people, it feels like, well, if I do that, I'm bragging and boasting. But it helps to put it in the third person because then you feel like you're describing somebody else. And it gives you so much insight into who you are as you write that out. So
Right.
it's like, oh, I
Great
really am.
exercise. Definitely recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I really
Those
believe,
are amazing.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I really believe that every one of us
Indeed.
has amazing things in us that we need to see for ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Janelle. I love this information. This is really powerful stuff, and I definitely want to go home and share this with everybody and make sure that they all go through these exercises. But tell us how the audience members can connect with you and get in touch and follow you and learn more about what you've got to offer. Amazing stuff.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. So my website is emerginglifecoaching.com. And that's EMERGING. And my email is Janelle at emerginglifecoaching.com. So I'd love to hear from anyone. I also have a website. I mean, I have a podcast called Women Emerging Fearlessly. And, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook group, same name as my podcast, Women Emerging Fearlessly. And I just love to pour into women and tell them how great they are and help them build that confidence. And so I would love for anybody to reach out to me. And I do have a free course called Be Confident, Be Real, Be You. It's 3 videos and it ends with the exercise where you create your vision board. So that is available as well.
Wow. You're very generous. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Guys, ladies, if I definitely want to invite you to go and check in the description box below. I have included all of Janelle's contact information, including the course and the gift, and ways that you can follow her. Really powerful person, really powerful message. And I hope that you guys all take advantage of it. Janelle, thank you so much for showing up, showing up the way you do, and doing all that you do. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here today with us. Audience members, if you haven't already done so, please make sure that you click subscribe so you get more exposure and notification of the amazing experts such as Janelle that show up on our channel and take advantage of the gifts and the expertise that they share with you. Janelle, before we go, any parting words of wisdom for our audience members?
Well, I always say be confident, be real, be you. I think that is probably the most powerful thing that we can do is just be who we are, because nobody else is like you. Nobody else will ever be you. And we really need you to be you, because if you're not being authentic and true to yourself, then there's this whole space in the universe that is not being filled, that only you can fill. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Beautifully said. I couldn't agree
Okay.
more. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All
Thank you
right,
for having
guys.
me.
We'll see you in the future episodes. And Janelle, I look forward to further collaborations with you. Cheers.
You too. Thanks for having me.